Hi guys, I thought I would do something a little bit different today, and we are painting outdoors, out into the wild blue open or something like that, which is a coincidence because today I am painting the Catoosa Blue Whale, which is on Route 66. It's kind of famous, it's cute, it's whimsical, it's all of those things. So I thought I would give that a shot today and paint it. So let's do this. Alright, so here we go. I felt like no visit to the whale would be complete without actually going inside the whale, because that is the point of the entire thing. It was originally built by Hugh S. Davis, who was a zoologist, and he built it for his grandkids so that they could slide off of its fins and into the water and swim around and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of got a special place in everybody's heart around here. See, there's one of the slides right there. You just slide right on out into that thing. Nobody swims here anymore, but they did used to, a lot, I think. And it does have two levels, actually. We're underneath the second level right now, and you can see that there's a ladder that would go up to the second level. And there's a little hole there, and as recently as about 10 years ago, people were able to go up into it, because here's me and my husband sticking our heads out of all the little blowholes or whatever. So obviously at one point people were able to do that. And then the rest of his back here is just open air. You've got a couple ladders leading up to the top. That was for when it was used for swimming. And then you come back here towards the tail, and there are just absolute masses of spider webs there, so I'm not going to be going in that. And then you just turn back around and come the other direction. All right, so here's my little setup right here. This is where I'm going to be painting, and there, over there is the whale. So that should be perfect. And I think I'll be getting some shade here in a little bit. I'm going to start out by mixing a little bit of cerulean blue with some ultramarine blue. I'm going to use that for the sky. And I've already got my drawing here. I didn't film that part, so I apologize, but I'm just going to add a little bit of sky here. You can't really see very much of it because most of this behind here is trees, but I'm adding in just a little bit of that. And then I'm going to mix some sap green with some burnt umber. Then I'm going to mix another green with some hooker's green and burnt umber, and a little bit of Payne's gray as well to get it kind of on the darker side. Now this is a Winsor & Newton Cotman travel set, but I've customized it a bit because I took out the black and white and I added in yellow ochre and hooker's green. The sky area is still a little bit damp, but I mean it's pretty windy out here, so it's kind of drying out fairly quick. So I'm taking my lighter of the greens and I'm just blocking in all of these trees in the background. It's really just one big mass of trees, and I'm not going to go crazy with detail. But I am going to come back in with my darker of the greens, and I'm going to add in some shadow forms. You'll notice that I'm cutting the sound out and doing a voiceover, and that is because there is so much road noise. I mean, literally, Route 66 is just right there, so it was just a little bit too much. I don't think y'all would have enjoyed that. Remixing my hooker's green mix and adding some more Payne's gray to make it a little bit darker, and then we're going to use that for more shadows. It's drying out really quickly because of the wind, so I'm going to go ahead and give this a spray with my tiny little spray bottle to keep the colors moving and mixing. I'm using my lighter green for the grass bank behind him, and then on the top I'm going to add some yellow ochre and let that blend in, and on the bottom I'm going to add my shadow color. Next I'm going to work on the little pond here, and I start with the lighter green for the reflection of the bank, and then I come to an even darker mix of my hooker's green mix, and I've added more brown into it because it's kind of a brownish greenish little pond here. Alright, it's time to mix up the blue itself. So I'm going to go with some cerulean blue, I'm going to add in a tiny touch of cadmium red and then a tiny touch of cadmium yellow. And I added in too much, so I took some more out, added some more blue, and then we have the perfect blue. Apparently before the Blue Whale was built, this area was called Nature's Acres, and it was actually an animal attraction that had a replica of Noah's Ark, and alligators roamed free. I'm not quite sure how that worked, and they had a pit of poisonous snakes. It was run by Hugh Davis, which we mentioned built the whale, and his wife Zelta. Now we need a shadow color, so I'm going to go ahead and mix in some more cadmium red into that, and it makes a kind of a purplish tone, perfect for shadows. And I'm going to begin to drop that into the wet wash here. And it looks a little scary right now, but it'll diffuse and it won't be quite so dramatic. Then we've got a little line of burnt umber across the bottom where all the paint is worn off at water's edge. For now, I'm going to skip the water area and come down to the bank. I'm going to start with the lighter of the greens and then add it progressively darker because most of this area is in shadow. We mentioned Zelta Davis, and we mentioned the alligators that used to be part of the attraction, but what we didn't mention is that Zelta was nearly killed by an alligator when one grabbed her hand and dragged her under. She escaped by banging it on its nose. I think it's safe to say she was quite the character. Next, I'm adding in some yellow ochre to the top here for a little bit of variation in color, and then I'm adding burnt umber mixed with Payne's gray down here for the dirt and gravel area. Now I'm mixing up a nice thick consistency of my green with the hooker's green, burnt umber, and Payne's gray. That's going to be for the water. And then I'm mixing up some more of my color for the whale because we need to add in his reflection into the water. I start out with the blue first and then stop and decide to wet the entire area first so that it'll all diffuse a lot easier, especially since it's so windy and dry out. Then I come back in and do the blue part, and then I come in with my dark green around that to add in the pond. I'm going to dry brush a little bit of texture into this gravel area real quick, and then I'm going to allow all of that stuff to dry while I mix up a nice red for the red details here. So I've got cadmium red, I'm going to mix in a little bit of alizarin crimson, and we're just going to go ahead and add in some of the details like the eyes and the red around the mouth, that kind of stuff. For some shadows, I'm adding in some nice watery Payne's gray in a few areas, like the inside of the mouth and underneath his fin. I've added more cadmium red into my blue mixture, and we're going to do a little bit darker of a shadow in the areas that it needs it. And here's where I made a massive mistake and almost ruined the whole thing. I thought the area over his eye was dry enough in order to add the black line around it, and it was not. And it bloomed so fast, and it made him look like he had eyelashes. But luckily, I was able to dab it out quickly, and it didn't kill the whole thing, thankfully. It's a tricky balance painting outside. I mean, you kind of assume that it dries really quickly, and it does because of the wind, but sometimes it doesn't dry quite fast enough. And it's not like you have a hairdryer around, you know. And I'm just using some phthalo green or viridian, I'm not sure which is in this kit, to add in his little details on his baseball cap. And now's where I add all of this tree shadow in the foreground here. I'm sitting underneath the tree, so all of this is in shadow. So I'm coming back in with my darker of the greens, and I'm just adding all of that in and then darkening the area underneath on the dirt area as well. And sometimes you'd have to deal with the local flora and fauna when you're painting outdoors. And here's this lovely grasshopper here, just checking everything out, you know, making sure I'm doing the right thing. I did get him out of there quickly though, because there's no telling if this paint is toxic to grasshoppers. I don't know. But there were a few ants crawling around as well, so sometimes you got to deal with that kind of stuff when you're painting outdoors. So now I've got some nice strong Payne's gray, and I'm adding in some of the details like the portholes and his nostrils and some more shadows, things like that. I think we need to darken up the area behind the whale to help him to stand out a little bit more, so I've mixed up a little bit darker of my shadow color, and I'm just bringing that in behind him. Decided there needed to be an in-between color between the shadow and the lightest of the greens on the trees, so I'm mixing that up right now, and then I'm going to add it in kind of the mid area here. And then of course we have another encounter with the local wildlife in this lovely enormous ant that decided to make its way across my painting. Alright, so now I'm just adding in some final details before I decide to take it on home. Alright, so we're back in my studio, as you can tell, without the green picnic table background. And so I thought I would just go ahead and add a few details just because I can. I mean, why wouldn't I? I'm here, all my stuff's here. Let's go ahead and add some details. So the inside of his mouth area was looking a little funny, so I decided to darken that up to draw a little less attention to it. And then I really think that the water area needs to be quite a bit darker to differentiate itself from the grass and to draw more attention to the whale. So I'm mixing up a really nice dark consistency of that dark green color with the hooker's green, burnt umber, and Payne's gray. I'm going to paint around, do some negative painting and paint around some grass shapes here to delineate that a little bit better. And then I'm going to give it a spray once I add the watercolor in, so that it can diffuse and still look like a reflection. And next, because I was painting so fast as I was out and about, I kind of covered over his little white baseball cap. So I'm going to come back in with a Posca pen, and I'm going to add some of that white back in here to make sure he has his little cap on. And to make sure that the teeth are delineated as well, I'm going to use that on the teeth and some other of the white areas just to add a little bit more detail back in. Two final things. I forgot to add in the reflection for the fin here, so I'm scrubbing a little bit of that paint out and adding in that white reflection. And then I'm going to come back in with my dark green, and I'm going to add a few very light kind of ripple effects into the water just to make sure that we all know this is water, and then I'm gonna call it a day. And here's the finished product. And I'm not gonna lie, I did get a little bit of the drawing wrong, like the proportion of his head is a little off, and I think his eye is a little bit large, but it was a whole lot of fun anyway, and I might go back again and paint this little guy, because he is an awful lot of fun. And to be honest with you, it was a lot of fun just to sit and watch the people that would come by, because I never would have thought about it, but it is Route 66, and there are a lot of people, even from foreign countries, that will come and travel Route 66. And I did hear some foreign languages being spoken, maybe Finnish or German, something like that. I'm not quite sure what it was. And then I did meet a couple from North Carolina that were making their way along Route 66, so it was very interesting and a whole lot of fun. And there you have it, a nice little quirky roadside attraction that maybe you can go paint yourself if someday you decide to drive good old Route 66. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, all of that stuff, because that's how this channel gets to grow. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again in 2 weeks.